We're just a month away from one of the biggest stages and one of the biggest events in all of wrestling, Wrestlemania, the granddaddy of them all, the Super Bowl of sports entertainment, the biggest stage of them all, this most stupendous premium live event in modern days, wrestling event of all time, none other than WrestleMania. What's going on, guys? Boss up 6 here, back to another video, and today I have a different series I'm going to be doing on my channel. Now, since Mania month is just around the corner and it's actually going to be starting in April, I might as well, I guess you could say, pay tribute and dedication to some of the greats that have taken upon the greatest stage of them all, the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania, and a little series I'm going to be calling WrestleMania Warriors. Now, here are the rules and some of the, I guess, instructions I'm going to be going by. One, it's going to be three wrestlers that I pick at random. Number two, and these people have to be either no longer with us or they're in the Hall of Fame and or they are retired. So no current wrestlers going today like Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns or John Cena or Randy Orton. None of those guys because those guys are still going till this day as I'm still recording this. Well, maybe unless Cena and Orton because they're Orton's still recovering from surgery and Cena's doing part time. He's going to be at Mania this year. Point is, I'm going to do at least my damnedest to at least pay tribute and give my full thoughts on what these wrestlers and their matches were around this time because it is something I've been planning to doing for a little bit, and I have seen some other videos where people are, talking about wrestlers and talking about what other how their matches were. So you could kind of say it's plagiarism, but one, they have editing, and I can't edit myself out of a paper bag. And two, I'm kind of doing it in my own way and taking some influence from other videos. So don't misconstrue as plagiarism because lately I've had that way too much in my lifetime. But anyways, without wasting further ado, let's get into the first wrestler, the none other than whatever the hell he does. None other than Mr. America himself, Hulk Hogan. Now, I'm about out of breath just by doing that. Oh, don't worry, I gotta do an impersonation of a wrestler here in a little bit, but anyways. Say what you will about Hogan. Yes, he's kind of an idiot, he's a racist, all that stuff, yada yada. You can talk about how his wrestling career was. He was a politician. He didn't want people to be over, all that stuff, yada yada. No matter what, you cannot deny Hogan's success, even though he did overstay his welcome. And by overstay, I mean he overstayed his welcome big time, but I'll get to that here in a little bit. Hogan really influenced the wrestling world because he was the draw for decades. Like, you want to talk about the longevity of his career. He almost did not wrestle after taking a beating from um, some Japanese trainer that almost got him to quit wrestling. That was back in, I think, in the early 80s. I think 82 or 83. Imagine Hulk Hogan not being in wrestling. I don't know if wrestling would be where it's at if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan. I'm not going to deny the fact that in real life he is an idiot, and I'm not going to deny those. What I won't deny is the fact that he contributed a lot to wrestling no matter where he was and how he was in his life. So, with my jibber jabber out of the way, let's get into the first match that Hulk Hogan was a part of. It was the first ever Mania main event and the first and to only date only Mania tag match that would main event a WrestleMania. I've said Mania so many times I've lost brain cells. It is none other than Hulk Hogan and Mr. T against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. Now, Muhammad Ali was special guest referee, and Superfly Jimmy Snuka was in Hulk Hogan and Mr. T's corner, and I think it was Pat Patterson. I think that was in the corner of Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper. Oh no, he was also special guest referee along with the late great Muhammad Ali, and this was a spectacle to say the least. It was Bob Orton Jr. That's who it was. I just not remember that. Um, this was at a period where basically everyone that friended Hulk Hogan befriended him. Like, It started with Orndorff because back in 83, 84, Orndorff and Hogan were having a mutual bond, a relationship, and they were teaming up and all that stuff. And then Orndorff turned heel on Hogan, and they had series of cage matches, all that stuff, and all that, good stuff. Meanwhile, Piper would come in around 84. He was finishing up his stuff in NWA. He had his legendary match against Greg the Hammer Valentine in that brutal dog collar match. Actually, the first ever Starrcade in 1983. And he came over to WWE or WWF at the time, and he was feuding with Hogan, and eventually Mr. T would get involved, and all that good stuff. So we get this tag match here, and while it is not great, it's not a great match. It's a solid match for what it is because it got its point, it went straight to the point, and we knew we were going to get. Piper wanted to box Mr. T, and Hogan wanted to get his revenge on Orndorff, and Bob Orton always had the cast on. He tried to use the cast, but ultimately it did not work. And in the end, Hogan and T win. Solid main event. Not one of the best, but it wasn't bad either. It was more of a middle of the road Mania. Looking back, Mania 1 had its ups and downs, but they were starting to plant the seeds into ultimately what would become the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania. So, humble beginnings, but that's more to say than the other event that's going to be happening. And we transform a year later into 1986. We get Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy in a steel cage match for the WWE Championship. Now, it was around the time that Hogan would actually start feuding with the big guys, like the Big John Studs and, the Butch Reeds and all those big guys and all that stuff. The one-man gangs eventually. And Bundy was kind of a thorn in Hogan's side for a while because while the build wasn't really great, the match itself can tend to be a bit forgettable. Now, it wasn't bad. It was more of a standalone Hogan versus big guy match just with the cage involved. And one of the rare times that you actually get to see Hogan bleed in a Mania match because he actually had his ribs taped up because of Bundy keep attacking him. Now, Bundy wasn't really that great of a big guy at this point of his career, but he was still a serviceable big guy for what he was. And then later on down the road, he was really just another guy that was just in a faction. And, it's kind of sad because Bundy was actually not that bad for a big guy. It's just that he kind of just got lost in the shuffle after a while, especially in 95. And I'll talk about that later on. The point is, Hogan won, obviously, and it was a fine enough match, but when you're saying a fine enough match on Mania 2, it's kind of like you're trying to find a rusty nail that's you're trying to find the golden nail that you're trying to hit the head on a hammer with to hopefully that the threshold won't come down. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Point is, you're trying to find, a coin in a turd, basically, because Mania 2 was not that good. But yeah, it's about it for Mania 2, Hogan versus Bundy. And then we get to one of Hogan's more famous matches. Probably his most infamous match, his match against Andre the Giant, WrestleMania 3, 1987, for the WWE Championship. The story can tell itself. Hogan and Andre were like peanut butter and jelly. They were glued. They could be inseparable. And then came the weasel himself, Bobby the Brain Heenan, brainwashing Andre into turning on to Hulk Hogan. And Andre hasn't been beat for 15 years. That was always the myth that was going around. And, Andre was always, he was happy for Hogan, but he was always feels like he was getting overshadowed. It led to the infamous moment on Piper's Pit where Andre grabbed a hold of Hogan and started ripping and tearing his shirt and ripped off his cross and threw it onto the ground. And he says, I will challenge you to a match for the WWF Championship at WrestleMania. I feel so sorry for doing that. Rest in peace, Andre. God, I'm going to hell for that. So, Hogan and Andre had this match. It's not a good match in terms of match quality because Andre at this point he was starting to hit a bit of a dip And Hogan was limited in the ring, even though he could do some good stuff for a guy his stature. In terms of a spectacle, it's one of the best Mania moments and one of the best Mania matches. Match quality, it's not good in all honesty, because again, Andre really wasn't in the best shape of his career, and Hogan can only be so limited. The immovable force for the irresistible force versus the immovable object, and the infamous slam. It was the first time Andre's ever been slammed, even though he's been slammed before a couple times. I think even in Puerto Rico against Hogan at one point. Again, match is not great, but the moments kind of outshine the match itself in a good way and not in a bad way. So yeah, Hogan and Andre, it'll stand the test of time and has one of the most infamous Mania moments of all, one of the most famous Mania moments of all time, and it will still be imprinted in our brains till we are no longer existent. So yeah, Hogan and Andre, not a good match quality wise, but as a spectacle, a plus in my opinion. And then we get the long-awaited rematch all of a year later, Hogan versus Andre at Mania 4, 1988. Oh boy, where to begin with this one? So, after Mania 3, Hogan and Andre had a rematch on Saturday night's main event, where we get the famous moment where Hogan got his shoulder up, but the crooked referee, which is the late great Dave Hebner, he actually cost Hogan the match and says, well, there's two of them, there's two referees, and Hogan got screwed, and he just freaking chucked Hebner out of the ring. And of course, Hogan's like, well, how much did they pay? How much did they pay for the plastic surgery, Mean Gene, and all that stuff? And led to it actually led to the title being vacated by Jack Tunney, who was the president at the time. And because Andre won the title, but he says if you won the title, he'd give it up to Ted DiBiase, because him and DiBiase were a thing at this point. And God, I miss Andre, I really do. And he says, I am the WWF Tag Team Champions. God bless Andre. God bless his soul. But eventually the title got vacated, and it was in a tournament that was really, really, really badly booked. But the match here, it's by far the worst match these two have had. This was not that good in all honesty. It was one of the few duds that Hogan would have in his Mania. It's not the worst Hogan match. I'll get to that here in a little bit, but yeah, this match was just awkward. This was sloppy. At least with Mania 3, at least they looked like they knew what they were doing. With this match, it was just full blown, what the hell are we doing here? Where it ended in a double DQ, even though Hogan hit Andre first, and yet Andre hit Hogan back. That was such a weird thing, too. And it will play a little bit of a part later on in the main event with DiBiase and Savage, but Hogan and Andre, this match just did not click. Like, I don't know if Andre was just burned out or Hogan was on the pills, brother, and he didn't know what the hell he was thinking. This match was just so weird and was so awkward. And yeah, it was one of the very few duds that Hogan would have at Mania. But eventually he will redeem himself the following year, 1989, when he would face his Mega Power and brother in arms, Randy Savage. The Mega Powers explode for the WWF title. This has been a feud 18 months in the waiting. Because after Hogan and Andre had their scuffle earlier in the tournament, Savage would beat DiBiase with the help of Hogan, of course, because Andre was there, and he would win the WWF Championship. And then they would have the first ever SummerSlam main event between DiBiase and Savage, where Liz infamously took her skirt off. God damn, Liz was beautiful. Screw you, Luger, for helping kill her, you bastard. But I digress. Talk about Luger maybe in a future video. The point is that Savage was really starting to grow jealous of Hogan and Liz's relationship. Now, at this point, Liz and Savage were really starting to butt heads in their relationship, and it would get a little worse later on because I love Savage, I love Randy. He was kind of a meathead when it came. We was kind of a head case, in all honesty. But we get this match here where Savage famously turned on Hogan during the Saturday night's main event, turn heel, shove Liz, and get Queen Sherry, and eventually become the Macho King and all that stuff. And while this match was great, Hogan should have lost. If Hogan would have won at SummerSlam, I would have been fine with that. I felt like Savage could have held on the title a little bit more, but we all knew Hogan was going to win. Great match, even though Hogan got carried. It was a power. It was a perfect blend of crazy versus crazy, and congealed into a nice meat package. So yeah, there we go. Not much more need to say after this. And then we get to 1990, where Hogan took on Warrior. So yeah, I don't know if I really need to talk about this match. So Hogan and Warrior had a face-off in the Rumble before that, and at this point, Warrior was the Intercontinental Champion at the time. So what basically happens is it was a winner-take-all match, and what happened is Hogan and Warrior. It was a rare face versus face at Mania, which you don't really see that often at Mania. Whereas, who was more over, Hogan or Warrior? While the match itself was great, the title run for Warrior was very mundane because he didn't really have a lot of people to feud with, maybe besides Rick Rude, and he was feuding with Rude over the IC title. It's just the fact that I think Rude really wasn't champion world title material, which sucks to say because I think Rude could have been a good world champion. It's just the fact that you have so many other pieces floating around that you were kind of just stuck in the middle. Great match. I can't really talk about it much more. Hogan kicked out three and 3/4 at the very end. Not much more needs to say. I mean, there's sometimes some of these matches I don't need to really put into much thought. So yeah, Hogan versus Warrior, one of the best Mania matches of all time, and arguably the best main event of all time in Mania history. Even though that's kind of stretching it a bit. Then we move forward in 1991. Sergeant Slaughter versus Hulk Hogan for the WWE Championship. So Slaughter turned heel, became the Iraqi sympathizer, and the whole Persian Gulf War, and all that stuff, getting cheap heat and wanting to burn America. He wanted to take America back. And, the Iron Sheik got involved, and in his, it was Colonel Mustafa and General Adnan. Um, and yeah, the Triangle of Terror, which, God, Jesus, that was terrible. Which, yeah, got Slaughter out a lot of heat, and he even canceled his G.I. Bro collaboration with Hasbro, which, yeah, that really was fun. And it was originally going to take place, what the hell was this? It wasn't going to take place in LA Coliseum. It was going to take place, I think, in Indianapolis. But, um, unfortunately, yeah, because ticket sales weren't going up, and it was a bomb threat, quote unquote. And, Slaughter just wanted help from Warrior after assist from Savage. And it was kind of a foreign heel, Hogan versus foreign heel match. And for a match, it actually was not that bad. It's one of the weaker Mania main events, but I don't think it's really as bad as everyone says it is. Yes, Slaughter at this point was starting to wind down his career, and Hogan at this point was really not getting cheered all that well, despite the fact that he was, getting pushed a lot. So yeah, it was kind of just a typical main event. Like, it wasn't really nothing of note. But Hogan bleeding at the end was a really cool spot, and him being in the camel clutch and all that stuff was a really cool spot. But besides that, it was just kind of an alright match. Like, Slaughter did damn good for the stuff that he was given, and, Hogan is Hogan. It was a serviceable, if not kind of meh, main event in all honesty. I don't think it was bad. I think it was just okay for what it is. Oh boy, we got a real stinker here, folks. 1992, and this is where Hogan was not getting cheered all that well. Hogan versus Sid, Mania 8. Woof. So basically, what happens is the antithesis of this entire feud. Sid eliminates Hogan from the Rumble in '82. And then Hogan helps Flair eliminate Sid, where Flair won the title, and Hogan and Sid now get the Mania main event when in reality it should have been Flair versus Savage. Yeah, this match was not good. Hogan at this point, people were getting sick of him. I even argued they were getting sick of him by 1990 and even 91. They were really starting to get sick of Hogan at this point. The fact that Sid has had two media matches and both of them ended up in main events is wild to say the least. This and his Mania 13 match against Taker were main events, and shocking absolutely no one, both of those matches sucked. This was probably worse than Sid and Taker. I'll probably get to more detail why that maybe in another video, but God, this match was not good. It's more famously known for Papa Shango missing his cue, and Harvey Whippleman had to get in there and, attack Hogan, and even though Hogan attacked Harvey, it was ruled a DQ. Yes, a Mania main event had a DQ in it. All just for Warrior to come down and save Hogan, because Warrior had his fallout with Vince at SummerSlam 91, where he wanted more money because of his stuff with Hogan in 1990, and Vince said no, and Warrior eventually came back. It was just a wacky as hell. It was just wacky as hell. Like, it was just bizarre. It was such a weird Mania main event. It was not good. It was not really that great. Not really interesting. No really story going on. And the finish made everything look worse. But that wasn't the only time Hogan was in a main event where he shouldn't have been. We get to Mania 9. Oh boy, Mania 9. My favorite. Yeah, Mania 9 is regarded as, if not the worst WrestleMania of all time, and it's really not hard to see why, because this Mania was dog crap. This was a terrible, terrible, terrible Mania. But somehow, there's like maybe one or two matches I like more than Mania 11. So, we get to one of Hogan's two matches. Yeah, Hogan had two matches. I'll get to the second one here in a bit. Hogan and Beefcake versus IRS and Ted DiBiase for the tag titles. I really don't know what the point of this feud was, in all honesty, besides that Leslie, I forgot what the hell Beefcake's real name is, but he was in a parasail accident and his face got rearranged. Basically, he had to wear the mask, and they were the Megamaniacs, and they were going after IRS, and they were going after Mini Incorporated. Jimmy Hart was in the Megamaniacs corner. This was a mess. I can understand why people like it, but this was just an absolute cluster of a match. This match was so wacky and bizarre. So the referee gets knocked down, and Jesus Christ, Jimmy Hart takes off, puts on the ref shirt, counts to three, and announces that Hogan and Beefcake won the tag titles. When in reality, it was a DQ, and it was actually supposed to be rumored. I think this was actually going to be planned out. Hogan was going to have a tag title run, but he said, that doesn't work for me, pal. And goes on to, well, politically get his way again, because Hogan's never used politics, and get somehow into the main event. Hogan versus Yokozuna. 1993 was not a good year, folks. This was proof that 1993 was rough, because this is by far the worst Mania main event. It's not even close. There are some that are close, but yeah, this match was not good. This match was terrible. This was such bullshit. This was such a bullshit match. Because, okay, Bret and Yoko had their match, and actually Yoko went to the finish early because he wanted to go home. So they kind of rushed the finish. Fuji salt in the eyes, and, Bret's blind and all that stuff. Leg drop, there you go. Yokozuna wins. And then Hogan comes out, and he had a black eye too because apparently Savage punched him out. At least that's like the rumors, and they've been rumors for a long time. And all that stuff. And Hogan comes in. Brett says, "Go and take my title." Basically, misses Salt in the Eyes by Fuji. Leg drop. Hogan wins and becomes WWE champion. Again, bullshit. Complete bullshit. This did nothing for Yokozuna. It made Brett worse, and it proved that Hogan is champion again, and the company would suffer for another year and a half. Now, if the end game was going to be Brett versus Hogan at SummerSlam, which it was rumored to be, then this was still a bad main event, but at least it was set for something better. But we all know what happened afterwards. Hogan faced Yoko King in a ring after Hogan, says that the WWE title is a toy after he went to Japan and he wants the real belt, the IWGP World title. And Vince says, "Well, pal, you're going to make fun of my title? You're going to lose via shenanigans." Where somehow an evil Japanese flash photographer flashed Hogan in the eyes, and there you go. That match at, King of the Ring 1993, that was a terrible match. But it lasted longer, and yet it was somehow worse than it was. It was bad. Really, 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 really bad. It was a bad match. So yeah. What more needs to say about the worst Mania main event of all time, folks? There really doesn't need to be said. And then finally, the last Hogan match on this list, we move forward 10 years later, 2003, WrestleMania 19, Vince McMahon versus Hulk Hogan in a street fight. Who is WWE? Who is WrestleMania? Was it Vince's creative idea, or was it Hulk Hogan that popularized the event? Now, the feud for this has been a bit bonkers, in all honesty. Hogan gets screwed out of Canada by The Rock and Vince and Sylvester Grenier as the referee, and it led to this match. I have stated in my top 30 favorite Mania main events, this is probably a top 15 Mania match. I don't care what anyone says. This match was so bonkers and so crazy. It's one of the most entertaining matches in Mania's entire history. This was almost match of the night, in all honesty, but there were some other matches that were good, like Angle and Brock and Jericho and HBK and all that stuff. This was balls to the wall insanity, but done in the right way, where both these guys were in their 50s and they were taking these bumps, like Vince doing a leg drop through a table, and Hugo Sagovich, God bless his soul, getting a freaking brutal chair shot by Hogan, and the most famous moment, Vince peering over the pipe like a demon coming out from hell with the blood dripping all over his face. You even got a visual for Roddy Piper as well. He came in, and him and Hogan would have a pointless feud. In 2003, no less, after they're way past their prime. 3 leg drops, Hogan wins, and there you go. Yeah, there's not more that needs to be said about this match that hasn't already been said. So that finished up Hulk Hogan. Who else do I have on my list? Ooh, yeah. Dig it. You listen here, pal. I am the Macho Man Ray Savage. Ooh, yes. The cream of the crop. Yes. Cup of coffee. God, somebody's going to meme the hell of me, and if my life's already a meme of itself, then I don't know what I'm doing here. One of my favorites of all time, the Macho Man Randy Savage. One of the most chaotic wrestling personalities of all time, and his influence on wrestling has really not changed all that well, folks. He is still one of the most influential wrestlers of all time, and for as wacky and his nonsensical chaoticry, if that's even a word, it's somehow confined in a very nice package. And this was some of his matches are some of my favorite matches of all time. But not everything was great, though, because, well, let's get into his first match, which was from Mania 2 for the IC title. Him and the always beautiful Miss Elizabeth taking on George the Animal Steel for the IC title. Now, this feud has kind of become a beauty meets beast kind of thing where George was going after Liz, and because she's very beautiful. And I mean, I don't really blame George in all honesty, even though George is an idiot. Don't ask me, ask Bret Hart, allegedly. But it was just kind of a random feud. It was kind of a wacky feud. But in all honesty, it really wasn't. The match itself wasn't bad per se. It was just kind of like you get the George Animal antics with him, getting all the get the turnbuckles and all that stuff, and Randy, doing everything he can to finally beat Steel. And yeah, the match wasn't really that great, but I kind of enjoyed it for the entertainment value that it did provide, even though that, yeah, it really wasn't that great of a match. But all in all, it wasn't that terrible. I think they did what they could with this. But all would change in 1 year. WrestleMania 3, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Randy Savage for the IC title. Now, this match is one of the biggest matches that happened at WrestleMania, and I can't really complain because this match, folks, is one of my favorite matches of all time, and it's just beautiful. I love this match. This is one of my favorite matches of all time. I cannot stress on how much I love this match. It's arguably the best IC title match, arguably the best championship match at WrestleMania, and it's arguably the best match in both men's careers, in all honesty, because you look at Steamboat's caliber and his matches with Flair, and you look at Savage's caliber with his matches with Steamboat and his matches with Hogan, and even his matches with Warrior. It's kind of almost hard to depict which is the best, in all honesty. I can't literally stress on how beautiful this match is. One of the best matches of all time. Best match, probably a top 5 Mania match of all time. It's pure wrestling masterclass. So there you go. Then we get to Mania 4. Savage had quite a few matches in this Mania. So the first one we're going with is Randy Savage versus Butch Reed with Slick. Match really wasn't amount of anything. It was 5 minutes, and Savage won. That's basically the antithesis of this entire tournament, because that's how poorly designed this tournament was. Now, there was a key point in this tournament that I would like to talk about, and that is the match that we should have got, but we ultimately did it, which was Randy Savage versus Steamboat and their rematch. Unfortunately, though, Greg the Hammer Valentine ruined that by beating Steamboat the match before Savage's. And I can agree why they did that, but at the same time, it could have been like, you could have passed the torch from Steamboat to Savage. So be like, okay, we're even now, and you have my respect now, and all that stuff. I felt like they could have done that, but they ultimately didn't, and it was just kind of a wasted opportunity, in my personal opinion. But the match between Savage and Valentine, which I'm talking about now, it wasn't bad. It was only 6 minutes. It was just another bad guy that Savage had to overcome, and he ultimately did, which then would lead to Savage versus One Man Gang, which One Man Gang got disqualified because he kept attacking Savage with a chair, and I would beat Savage up a little bit more and go into the main event. It really wasn't much of a match. It felt like more of an angle because, One Man Gang, before he became Akeem the African Dream, good old fashioned Akeem the African Dream, he would just keep attacking Savage, kind of weaken Savage for his final opponent, which is Ted DiBiase in the finals for the WWF Championship. Now, a lot of people tend to forget this match. I kind of think this is an underrated gem because Well, I guess it really wasn't that long. Um, it was just short of 10 minutes. I think for the time that these guys were given, they made the best out of it because you had DiBiase, the guy that got all the buys, and he basically got all the ones without breaking a sweat. Well, Savage went and bruised and battered and had to go through hell and high water into the main event. Now, when Savage won, it was a great moment. I would have liked to see what DiBiase would have done because Ted was kind of an underrated villain when it came to the Hogan era, where he was the guy that is the kind of villain that everyone wants to see get his ass kicked because of how he's a millionaire and he's a rich douchebag and all this stuff, and he kind of is in real life if you look at his history. DiBiase was kind of a guy that was always a thorn in Hogan's side and all that stuff. If you want a proof example of it, watch his promo with Jake Roberts from Mania 5. It is masterful. One of the most underrated promos that Jake's ever cut. And it is today one of my favorite promos of all time. So yeah, DiBiase, I felt like they could have done more with him, but they really didn't, which kind of sucks. But, Savage won with help of Hogan, which then would lead to their blow off match, Mania 5, Hogan and Ward, or not Hogan and Ward, Hogan and Savage. Again, I already talked about the match. Don't really need to talk about it more. Good match. Savage should have won, in my opinion, then saved it for SummerSlam. But you really can't, turn back the clock and turn back the past, unfortunately. Then Savage went from main event in Mania with Hogan to having a mid-card feud with Dusty Rhodes. Now, you think about that, and you'll be like, okay, this does not sound bad on paper. But what comes a theory comes execution, and it was not executed well. Savage and Sensational Sherry took on Dusty Rhodes and Sapphire, who was a friend of Dusty's. Yeah, this match really wasn't amount to anything. This match felt like more of an angle more than anything because you think about it. Savage and Dusty, you have one of the best in WWE or WWF and one of the best in the NWA colliding and what should have been a great match, but it really was not. They had a match at SummerSlam which was even worse than this. God bless Sapphire. God bless her heart. God bless her soul. She was not that good in the ring. Sherry looked amazing because it's Sherry, but man, I'm just not thinking about it. All four of these participants are no longer alive with us. Ugh. Yeah, that's a big oof right there. But yeah, match really was not that good. Um, yeah, just nothing clicked. Nothing clicked in all honesty. And it kind of sucks because again, you have Dusty Rhodes and you have Randy Savage. How the hell did that not work? I don't get it. I don't get it. And yeah. So we get to Savage vs. Warrior. I already talked about it. One of the best media matches of all time. It was a quote unquote retirement match, and then Savage will come back in the company within like a year. So there you go. Then we get Savage vs. Flair, Mania 8. Again, what should have main evented WrestleMania, but it unfortunately did not. Great match. Really great match. We should have seen those pics of Elizabeth Flair. Damn it. But we unfortunately did not. Oh well. It is what it is. Sorry, someone was texting me here, folks. I apologize for this. But yeah. Damn it, Flair. We should have seen those naked pictures of Liz. That's all we wanted. But yeah, match was great. Should have been evented. What else do I need to say? And then, and then, and then, Savage didn't participate in Mania 9 because he was a commentator. Then we get his final match, which was against Crush. Mania 10, 1994. Yeah, this match was, it was a false count anywhere match. And typically, you think of a false count anywhere match where you can literally pin anywhere on anyone on the floor or on a wall in some cases. Well, that's not what they acquired here because after you pin your opponent, you have to race down to the ring, and if you aren't in there in 60 seconds, then then you lose the match. It was a weird concept, which actually, in all honesty, could have. Looking back on it, it does not sound like a bad concept. It just like I felt like it was just like a one and done thing, in all honesty. But Savage and Crush, it was an entertaining match, even though the ending was botched because Crush was supposed to be hung upside down by his feet in this weird back room area, but Savage couldn't do it, so Crush just kind of like fell, and he was just on the floor, just waiting for the match to end, and Fuji got beat up. Yeah, I remember the story that Savage and Crush were discussing their match in the bathroom, and somebody walked in, and he's like, "Hey, hey, pal, you better get the hell out of here while you're still breathing." Oh, Randy, you psycho! But yeah, afterwards, Savage would leave, go to WCW, and the rest they say is history. And then finally, the last participant on my list that I am doing for me, WrestleMania Warriors is oh, feel the power of Ultimate Warrior. God, I make myself look like an idiot, at least on a daily basis. Yeah, Ultimate Warrior. Oh boy, you want to talk about someone that has been on the frickin' pills? No, look further than this guy. Jim Hellwig, where hell is going to be his home after the stuff he's been through. Say whatever you will about Warrior, you cannot deny he is one of the most psychotic wrestlers you'll ever see because he was more of a spectacle than a superstar in terms of he's the guy to run down to the ring, beat you in 30 seconds, and get the hell out of town. It's basically Warrior in a nutshell. And oh boy, his first match was certainly a doozy, wasn't it? Because he took on Hercules Hernandez at Mania 4. Oh, Jesus, Lord have mercy. Where do I begin with this one? Okay, so Warrior was limited in the ring, as we all know, but this almost went 5 minutes. Oh, God almighty. Oh, Lord. This is in contention with this worst one, but there's one that's worse than this by proxy. Yeah, this match was bad. Um, Hercules was kind of an underrated guy for a guy his size, but he can only do so much. Oh, Jesus, Lord mercy. This match was rough. Warrior was greener than goose shit. Hercules did the best he could, and he had a match with Billy Jack Haynes, or not Billy Jack Haynes, Hillbilly Jim, at Mania 3 the year beforehand. That was actually a pretty damn good match for a guy those for guys that size. This match was just horrible. This was a terrible match. But we can all go up from here. Warrior won, and we went up from here. Where Ultimate Warrior took on Rick Rude for the IC title, Mania 5. Um, this was a good match, even though Warrior got carried. This was in the midst of the Rick Rude Warrior feud, which was actually pretty damn good. Um, I really do miss Rude. He was so underrated, and he was so great. Man, back injuries suck. Someone that goes through back pains, it sucks. It really does. I can only imagine what Rick went through. But solid match. The famous ending where Bobby was holding onto the Warrior's feet while Rude was pinning him. Again, a classic moment. And then Warrior went to go break Bobby Heenan's neck afterwards. Because Warrior was a clueless twat. But yeah, all in all, solid match, good stuff. Then we get Hogan versus Warrior. Already talked about. Nothing more needs to be said. Then Savage versus Warrior. Again, already talked about. What more needs to be said. And then we get to his final match after being gone from WWE for about 6 years. Well, no. No, about 5 years. 4 years. Warrior versus Triple H, 1996. Oh, good lord. Yeah, Warrior 96 was certainly a thing. It would get worse in 97. But, yeah, this match was a squash match. They Triple H wanted to go over. Warrior said no. The crowd did not care about Triple H when he got in any offense. Hits pedigree. Warrior no sold it. Hit his running shoulder tackles. Splash 1, 2, 3. Triple H went to go bury him in interviews, and then later on, when Warrior's death happened, he said good things about Warrior. I guess time heals all wounds, I guess. So, folks, that is the first installment of Wrestlemania Warriors. I do apologize if this video went on a bit long, but Hogan had a lot of matches, and Savage Warrior had the least amount of matches, obviously, but talking about Hogan's longevity and Savage's longevity and all that stuff. So, I hope these videos are a bit different for you guys because, again, it is WrestleMania month, and I want to do a little something special during this time of year. So, what do you guys think about what is your favorite Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, and Randy Savage match? Let me know in the comment section below. Make sure you guys leave a like, leave a comment, tap that big red subscribe button, and tap the bell so when I upload, you will be notified. Thank you guys for watching this video, and most importantly, join the herd. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace out.